without further ado, guys, let me get him in here. Welcome to you. Caught you with the cup. Welcome, bro.
You did catch me with the cup. You got me right before. Hey, how's it going, Greg? It's good to see you.
It's going great.
To finally be here. People have been
Man,
asking and emailing me to come on for a while now.
It's awesome, dude. I'm looking forward to it. And what I appreciate is you do what I do. You put your rear in Ukraine. So you definitely have something to say, not only with your intelligence. I enjoy listening to your commentary on many things. Not just Ukraine, but internationally. Of course, tonight, I think we're going to focus on Ukraine, although we could talk about China, we could talk about India and Pakistan, we could talk about all kind of things. But Ukraine's the main story tonight because so much has unfolded today. But much respect to you. For those that are that are on my channel and for some reason maybe you haven't ever met Dylan Burns. Dylan, why don't you tell folks what you do? And we'll also link your... They've got your channel, the mods do in the chat. So
I'm very happy to be here, Greg. And the reason I'm particularly happy to be here is just like you said, you've put yourself on the front. You've gone there and talked to people on the ground. And I talk to a lot of people about the war in Ukraine. Most of them have never been to Ukraine. And so anytime I can talk to somebody who is an American, who is feeling the same type of pain I'm feeling right now about having to go back there and look those people in the eye and explain to them exactly what our country is doing, the backstabbing it's engaging in, the undermining it's engaging in, the flip-flopping on, we need a unilateral ceasefire to, well, I guess if it gets ignored. I can relate to you on that, and I can relate to only a few other expats on that, or other people who are going overseas and spending a lot of times overseas on that. So it's always good to talk to you because I can feel your pain, Greg. I can feel it in my bones.
I appreciate it, and likewise. And you will be returning to Ukraine very soon, and we'll be looking forward.
And I will be flying out this Friday. I'm going to go to Finland. I'm going to be in a cabin in the woods for a week alone, some solitude. I think everybody should have a little bit of solitude, you know, be alone with their thoughts, think. It helps clear the mind. Definitely in the age of so much information being thrown at you, you need some moments to process everything that's going on, especially now. And then I'm going to head over because I want to go document what's happening on the Pokrovsk front. I want to go in bed with some more drone crews. I got so much to do with firefighters and their experiences that they don't get nearly as much credit for the amount they put themselves through for their community. There's so much I want to do. And now that I have a cameraman and we have folk musicians that make Ukrainian folk music for our documentaries so we can continue to promote the language, I'm super excited for what this year has in store for the channel.
Awesome.
And our documentaries.
And your documentary that just came out was on Kherson, and we pushed that for everybody to get to your channel and see it. So thank you. How long will you be in Ukraine?
This time it might be 3 months. I'm thinking of possibly coming back for a short time in August to spend some time with family.
I'll see you over there.
It's going to be 3 months, and then it's going to be another 3 or 4 months because I'll come back and go back. And usually each year I end up spending about 8 months in Ukraine.
Sounds good. I'll see you there on this run. And we'll connect somewhere.
We'll get a drink.
Yeah, I'll drink tea and you can have a drink.
That counts. That works. Why not?
All right, that'll work. Well, but where we will have the tea and drink will be cool. I got a cool place, and I'm sure you do too.
Now I'm excited.
Yes. So let's do this right here, guys. Basically, the world knows. We've been dropping videos all day. And Trump's boiling mad because Zelenskyy didn't bow to the golden image. Zelenskyy outplayed everybody on the globe today, and we'll look at that. Zelenskyy just landed minutes ago in South Africa. He's about the business of Ukraine. He's not sitting around here, you know, whining and crying. He's about defending his country, making relationships with his country, and fighting for truth and justice. He has already landed in South Africa, and he will be meeting with the president of South Africa about relationships. And I know South Africa has a relationship with Russia, all of that, but this is good. He's out and about and working. So we'll get to all of that. It was like Trump said, okay, I've got good peace with Russia. Zelensky's the problem. And now just a couple of hours later, check this out, bro. And of course, you've experienced this many times. So we've had ballistic and cruise missiles flying, plus Shahed attacks. Most of them have already hit. There are about a group of 6 more still flying. We've had strikes in Kyiv. We've had strikes in Kharkiv. But that's not the big story. These missiles actually came out of the Black Sea from the ships this way, and the drones were coming. But the big deal right now is way back over here, ladies and gentlemen. The Tupolev 95s are in the air, and they will come into their launch windows 4 a.m. Ukraine. So about 3 hours from now, there could be a very, very large missile strike. So Ukraine watches it. They see the planes in the air. Many times the planes go up. They'll do fake launches, come back out. They're just running reconnaissance. They'll do it another time. And then on the third one, they'll let it roll. So this is one of those nights where we've already had strikes. So it's pretty hot. And we'll keep an eye on this anyway. We've all experienced that. So let's start here.
You know, when I see stuff like this, I've gotten very familiar with this shade of red, as I'm sure many other people have. But when I see stuff like this and I think about ceasefire monitoring, in this age, we have so much technology to monitor everything. The Ukrainians have radar systems. Everybody has their cell phone, like a huge computer in their pocket that could have, worked to send a spaceship into the sky 80 years ago, can now take pictures and videos and post it anywhere instantaneously. And so when these strikes happen, when these attacks happen, the evidence is so heavy. It's overwhelming. It's from every angle. You've got it from security cam footage to the physical evidence that you would get before. Back in 1933, 1944, whatever, when there was false flags or there was different instances and bombings and there was a lot of, let's say, dilution of the truth because we didn't have this information age, they would have died for the tools we have now to prove, wait, those were not Polish soldiers on the German border. Those were German soldiers. Oh, this bombing attack did happen. The denials from X, Y, and Z are completely fake. Now we have those tools, but because truth has become so cheap and because there's so much information that has flooded the system, so much bad information, these tools that, previous generations would die for to, monitor ceasefires like this end up documenting violations of ceasefires. And the U.S. president with his national security team says things like, oh, that's bad. I don't know what happened when he's getting intelligence briefings.
They made a mistake.
Yeah. Oops.
Yeah. Oops. They made a mistake. The Sumy strike was the specific one he referred to the mistake. And where did you hear that? From our sources. And we know where your source is. It's in Red Square. But we're going to get into all of that because you're spot on. And the tragedy of it is, Dylan, America's just ignoring it. In fact, we're going to cover one little story at the end that correlates with the conversation we're having right now. So let's do this. Let's catch everybody up. Dropped lots of videos today, but now want to talk about it, want to chat about it. Want to thank everybody for being here. Make sure you catch up with Dylan Burns. YouTube channel, Dylan Burns TV, Dylan Burns Live. He's nonstop rolling. Let me do these shout outs real quick. Maximus8992, welcome to becoming a new crew member. Thank you for that. Also, Papa Dutch, $5 super chat. I'm still waiting and watching for what America will do about Trump. We have to do something. This administration can't last. Papa Dutch, it will implode. It's already imploding. We've seen, it's imploding. And we could talk about China, the tariffs. Now Trump bows to China, the madness with Ukraine. I mean, we can go nonstop. It's imploding because it just will. This is not how you lead the free world. $20 Dunk on You 23, one of our great mods. Welcome back, my friends, to the train that never ends. We're so glad you could end. Come inside, come inside. Slava Ukraini, thank you for that dunk and the gifted memberships. Two quid from Julie Valaday, thank you for that. Papa Dutch, I think you're watching on a big screen tonight. If I was reading the chat earlier, I'll tip my hat to the new Constitution. Take a bow for the new revolution. Smile and grin at the change all around. Pick up my guitar and play just like yesterday. Then I'll get on my knees and pray we don't get fooled again. I feel like it's Mark Twain anytime he writes. Thank you for that, Papa Dutch. Linda S. from Australia. Too many amazing Hope Train riders. And Dylan, that's the name of my community, is the Hope Train.
The Hope Train?
Yeah, man. Coming to a station near you. Always want to bring hope, bring people together, not divide people. To say hello individually. I don't want to miss anyone. So big hello and hug to you all. And Linda H, $20 for the Sugar Cube Fund. Yes, ma'am. We're giving out sugar cubes nonstop. Thank you for that. You know what the sugar cube is, Dylan, with the personal drone
I'm
detector?
unfamiliar.
It's a little unit about.
Oh, I know what you're. I've seen those before. I've never called them sugar cubes. We just called, just drone detectors. But a lot of city workers in Kherson, if
Yeah.
their family's well off enough, will buy this for them.
Correct. Yeah, we get them and we give them away to soldiers. We roll with them. They're very, very important. Let me hit these right here, and then we're gonna get cooking. Johnny Nedregard, Norwegian Island Dweller, Norwegian Kroners 22. Welcome to you, my friend Little Dog. $5 super chat. F Russia. I know what that means. A Ukrainian friend in Kyiv just sent a panic message. Loud Shahed drone sounds and explosions near their apartment. Yes, it's very loud in Kyiv right now. Papa Dutch $2 super chat. I guarantee you Zelenskyy doesn't play golf. I know he doesn't play golf. Papa Dutch $2. Imagine Hitler saying, "Did I do that?" Yeah, exactly. That's what we're looking at. All right. And then Haji coming in $5. Find a rally, make a sign. This is good. This is good right here. Haji, find a rally, make a sign, walk with friends, let your opinions be known, and fight for democracy. Yes, completely agree and well stated. All right.
Grit your teeth and defend the Republic.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, Dylan, let's get going here. So, guys, over the last 24 hours, this is what is actually unfolded. 24 hours ago, we knew that the next round of meetings for discussing peace or possible ceasefires or plans going forward would be today in London. And Starmer was going to be there, French team, German team, the American team, and of course the Ukrainian team of Yermak and Umarov, the advisor to the office of the president, the head office, and the defense minister. So I had a feeling yesterday that it was going to change after Zelensky's video. He came out in a press conference yesterday and he point blank said, Crimea is non-negotiable. And what's interesting is, the United States trying to pressure for Ukraine to temporarily give away Crimea. They don't have to recognize it being Russia, but we're not going to fight against it. Freeze the line and it's over and we just go forward. We give Russia the win. But when Zelenskyy came out with that, it was, I translated it, played it on the video yesterday. It was obvious he had understanding in what he was saying. So then the London meetings were postponed. I was up late last night and at 3 a.m. Eastern, the news started breaking. I went back into the studio, popped a 7 or 8 minute video up and says it's postponed. So Rubio backed out. Witkoff, of course, gone. He's actually en route to Putin right now. And then the London team said they would not be sending their top representatives. France backed out. Germany backed out. And then you had low-level technical meetings, and Yermak met with Kellogg, just because. And that was it. The meetings were postponed. I'll give you one more. Responses started to happen, and after this, I'll get your thoughts. I put that video out, and then this morning, woke up, and we start hearing things like this. Now we understand Russia better after 3 years of silence, meaning the time when communication was cut off between the United States and Russia. Russia is not going to seize all of Ukraine, and Ukraine will not be able to push them back to the positions of 2014. If the U.S. mediated negotiations fail, Ukraine may find itself in a more awkward position in the future and receive tougher peace terms from the Russian Federation. So Rubio spewing, unfortunately, the Russian narrative. Then Hegseth comes out today. The U.S. can no longer fulfill the role of a security guarantor for Europe. And then immediately after that, Peskov comes back and he says, okay, we can end this. Ukraine must do what Putin said in June of 2024, withdraw all troops from Lugansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson, which includes the cities of Kherson, the cities of Zaporizhia, and others. And it's over. It's over. So this is the responses and the fallout that started to happen even before Trump went bonkers. So when you hear the Secretary of State Rubio, for example, Dylan, you know, you're very, very smart and bright. You know that years ago he was anti-Russia. He's from Cuba. He was anti-communism. He would make very strong statements. And now you hear what he's saying today. What are your thoughts that is our Secretary of State of the United States?
Rubio was a conservative hawk from the Reaganite school. I don't know how more. I mean, people like the term neocon, but it's a buzzword now, and it means it's completely been derived of all meaning. So that's the way to put it. A Reaganite hawk, somebody who believed that America should spread its wings as wide and as far as possible, both to spread principles of free trade and free markets, which of course some might disagree with him on, but was his principle, and that we should also support our allies around the world who are willing to make the world a safer place, and also help America keep its global trade dominance, its somewhat in its hegemonic dominance in the idea that America is a much better power in this position than, say, the Chinese, the Russians. This was his worldview, broadly speaking. And to see him have to rub shoulders with Tulsi Gabbard, with RFK, with Steve Witkoff, with J.D. Vance, with a whole cavalcade of people who should not be in the room on foreign policy issues. I mean, J.D. Vance, 2 years of Senate experience, venture capital all before that. So he's not exactly a foreign policy savant who even said on the campaign trail that he just straight up doesn't care about the war in Ukraine. Tulsi Gabbard constantly embarrasses herself, covers for authoritarian regimes, highlights biochemical research facilities as the real reasons for these wars, and is somebody who the Russians call their gal. Okay, so that's not going to be somebody who's going to be of that worldview. The only person I can think of that's even close is Keith. Right? Keith Kellogg. But the thing is with Keith is, even though before he was seen as somebody who was very pro-Ukraine, he's now talking about Ukraine as a barnyard animal that needs to be beaten with a 2x4 to drag them into submission. And if I was to be good faith to these people, as good faith as possible, and say, you know what, they got a 99-0 Senate vote. Obviously, the people who work with Marco probably knows him better than I do. Then the best case scenario is Marco Rubio is talking the way he does and walking the way he does because he is isolated in the Trump administration, as many reports have shown, and he's trying to see if by talking the way Trump does, he can finagle himself closer to the president and maybe have more influence, right? Which both benefits him personally, politically, and of course would also benefit his values. But if in the process of trying to wiggle up to the president, you abandon all of the values that you wanted to, put into prominence by getting close to the president, then it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. At a certain point, you would serve your values much more by resigning or by openly challenging the president and basically put him into the dilemma of having to confirm another Secretary of State, go through the entire process again, where he's not going to get another 99-0 vote, than you would be to continue to entertain the charade. Because at this point, I think there's a certain amount of, and of course this is true with politicians, choosing themselves over the issues they care about.
For sure. And that is one of the issues that Trump leads by example. It's all about him. It's all about his narrative. It's all about his plan. I mean, when I see the president of the United States saying, hey, Russia and Ukraine, just to agree to something and let's all get rich together, there's no care for humanity. And the moral question of humanity is gone from these people. And what disgusts me, and I'm conservative, Christian, I'm the machine gun preacher on the front line. That's what they call me out there in Ukraine. Okay. But dude, Trump is Trump wouldn't know Jesus if he walked in the room and slapped him upside the head. I'm telling you right now, and I'm not judging, but it's easy to inspect the fruit. It's absolutely obvious that the narcissism and the lunacy of what's happening, and it's just like you either have to be with him or you're going to be gone. And that's what we're seeing. Would
God's chosen sign a Bible?
Absolutely not, dude. I would never sign a Bible. And I'm not God's chosen. I mean, come on. Exactly. All right. So let's do this. That leads us right into this. And by the way, Kellogg, respect to the man, military service, over 80 years old, speaks Russian. He was strong enough to get kicked out of the meetings in Moscow because they thought he was too Ukrainian, and now he's switching, or just the pressure is pushing his narrative. It's irrelevant.
Do you think it's what I am ascertaining, that there's a certain amount of, we have to talk this way if we even want to be in the room, and it's better us being people who at least somewhat understand it than Steve Witkoff, who can't even name the regions he wants to give up?
I think that Kellogg was chosen, and then after being kicked out of the negotiations, the initial negotiations there in Moscow, and they said, we don't want him in here. He speaks Russian and understands Russian, first of all. And secondly, his viewpoints are too pro-Ukrainian. I think he was the balancing picture. I think it was all a facade, to be quite honest, a charade to present that America's trying to show the right efforts, that we do have some support for Ukraine. But I'll be honest with you. Okay, it's alive. I can be opinionated or give my opinions. When on my regular videos, I try to be facts only. I absolutely believe Donald Trump hates Vladimir Zelenskyy and hates Ukraine with a passion. That is my personal opinion. I think he absolutely adores Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, and Kim Jong-un and other strong men, strong-armed leaders. He just loves it. And, I can't prove it. I can show the video where he says, I'm good friends with Putin. I'm good friends with Xi. I'm good friends with Rocket Boy. I never had a problem with them. Under me, everything is good. It's Biden's fault. It's Obama's fault. It's Jesus's fault. It's Margaret Thatcher's fault. It's Reagan's fault. It's anybody's fault but me. And now today he goes all in. And he says, nope, it's Zelensky's fault. Today, he messed up. And I'm loving every minute of it. Let me tell you why. After all of this unfolded, I want to get your response on this because I know you've been rolling all day. Donald Trump messaged truth or whatever. See, I don't call it a truth because everything he puts out is not a lie. Is a lie.
It's so on the nose, isn't it?
Isn't it, dude? It's so funny.
Truth today. Go check my truths.
Yeah, exactly. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is boasting on the front page of the Wall Street Journal that Ukraine will not legally recognize the occupation of Crimea. There's nothing to talk about here. This statement is very harmful to the peace negotiations with Russia in that Crimea was lost years ago under the auspices of President Barack Hussein Obama and is not even a point of discussion. Okay, so if we just take the first part. First of all, Zelenskyy did not call the Wall Street Journal and ask them to put the headline up. Zelenskyy was in a press conference in Kyiv speaking in Ukrainian where he said, this is a red line for us. Crimea is ours. It's on the books. It's internationally recognized as our territory. I don't own it. It's Ukraine's. I can't give it away. It's our sovereign territory. But you see how Trump turns that. And I'll continue and then get your thought on it. Nobody's asking Zelenskyy to recognize Crimea as Russian territory. But if he wants Crimea, Why didn't they fight for it 11 years ago when it was handed over to Russia without a shot being fired? The area also houses, for many years before the Obama handover, major Russian submarine bases. It's inflammatory statements like Zelensky's that make it so difficult to settle this war. He has nothing to boast about. The situation for Ukraine is dire. He can have peace, or he can fight for another 3 years before losing the whole country. I have nothing to do with Russia, but have much to do with wanting to save, on average, 5,000 Russian and Ukrainian soldiers a week. So now it was 2,500. Now it's 5,000 that are dying every week, who are dying for no reason whatsoever. The statement made by Zelenskyy today will do nothing but prolong the killing field, and nobody wants that. We are very close to a deal, but the man with no cards to play should now finally get it done. I look forward to being able to help Ukraine and Russia get out of this complete mess and total mess that would have never started if I was president. Beautiful, huh?
Those are words in a particular order.
Yes. Let me ask you this. Do you hear any blame there for Russia as the invading nation?
No, no, there's no blame for the nation that rejected his unilateral ceasefire. There's no blame for the country that agreed to a civilian ceasefire in private with him and then completely publicly repudiated it, for the country that agreed to an energy ceasefire and violated it within hours. I mean, they need to check with Guinness to see if that is a speed run record for fastest violation of a ceasefire. I mean, Trump really is number one in some ways, always, you know?
Well, of course, you know, and Russia's not doing anything wrong. This is the real-time air raid alert, and where the Shaheeds are flying. So we're just, you know.
I mean, every time like Russia messes up and violates a ceasefire by blowing up a bunch of children, the way that Donald Trump responds is, oh, that's bad. I don't know what happened. The time that Ukraine says, hey, we don't want to give up Crimea, especially if we're not giving up anything, we're not getting anything in return. We're just giving it up and then freezing it where it is, while the Russians are demanding still in public for more. We don't even know if that's where they're going to freeze it now, let alone stopping the Russians from reigniting this in the future. So we're giving this up, moving their position forward for nothing in return. If it was like, hey, you get Crimea back and Mariupol, it goes back to, oh, okay, well, at least that's something for something. You would say that's something that's called negotiating, and not just, you know, a list of demands for one side to fulfill. Because I would just say, at what point do we say the Russians have to fulfill a concession? We haven't heard anything about the children. We haven't heard anything about territorial reclamation, which Trump did say he would try. And if he's honest that he did try, then he failed to be able to negotiate any of the territory back. We haven't seen any advancement on anything that the Ukrainians care about. So if Zelenskyy was to agree to this, he would be openly agreeing to recognize territory against the rules of the Ukrainian constitution and how the Rada would, of course, get a say. The duly elected representatives of the Ukrainian people get a say, which is strange to see the president of the United States question the democratic ethics of a country and then immediately tell them to disregard their constitution. But I mean, that is kind of regular behavior for Trump internally. So I guess him projecting that externally is nothing new. No cards is such a insulting and knuckle dragging way to look at the Ukrainian.
It's so derogatory.
It is stupid. It is demeaning, and it doesn't respect the amount of sacrifice they've made, the innovations they've made. They have the best trained concentration of drone pilots in the world, the highest concentration of per capita drone pilots in the world, who can take these little DJIs and turn them around corners and doors inside the house. If you see recent footage of these, I mean, them intercepting like the fixed wing aircraft, that's a year and a half ago news. I remember covering that for a drone documentary I still haven't finished, because there's so many innovations that each time I get close to finishing, I got to do a whole new chapter about this new method of, now they're tying drone guns to the drones so they can, you know, it's always this cool stuff. And we have that combined with the long range drones, combined with so much leverage, and we treat them as if they're flailing and near bleeding out and not a nation that's held out for 3 years.
No. Trump said Zelensky's the problem. He's the problem. That's why we can't have it's all the blame on them. And your description there of how good Ukraine is doing. Ukrainians were saying today, 11 years ago, when the Russians got into Crimea and Donbass, we didn't even call the war a war because our partners, the Americans, forbade us to do so, relying on the Minsk agreements, Normandy formats, and everything to not anger Putin. Because actually what it started as when Ukraine was defending against separatist action after Maidan, it was called the ATO, which was the anti-terroristic operation. And that's what was happening. Now, the world, they say, we agree, I agree, I know you do as well, is just trying to prove to Trump the only simple truth. It goes back to what you were saying earlier. There's so much proof, so much validation, so many cameras, so many recordings, so much evidence. Trump cannot accept the truth. The states declare we refuse negotiations, we sabotage them, and then declare, well, why didn't you fight for Crimea 11 years ago? You see, they put all the blame on Ukraine, zero on Russia, and then declare that it is Ukraine that is destroying the negotiations, which means Trump cannot handle the truth.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
That's it right there. Can't handle the truth.
11 years ago, the United States 11 years ago, when the Russians invaded Crimea and they tried to annex it and they went through this whole, referendum charade, the United States told the Ukrainians not to fight. Our government told them, do not fight. Do not fight. We will not support you. Despite what we agreed in the Budapest Memorandum, I'm sorry, but we'll give you some radar systems. We'll give you some NATO advisory training down the line. We'll give you this, we'll give you that, but don't fight. Do not fight. And when you're Ukraine and you're put in that position and you listen to the United States and then have the United States come back to you a decade after you told them to give up the peninsula, and you say, well, why didn't you fight for it? You told us not to fight for it.
Exactly.
There were people in Crimea that were willing to fight for it. You don't think the Tatars were willing to fight for their homes before their activists ended up bloated, floating down the river after, getting snatched off the street? You don't think that there were not people in the Ukrainian armed forces that would be willing to fight in Crimea, or people from across the rest of the country who went to the Donbass and fought? They fought in the ATO. You think none of those people who fought in the ATO wouldn't have also fought in Crimea? And so it's not that I know that if they would have fought for Crimea back then, they would have won. What I am saying is that you tell Ukraine to do something, they listen to you, and then you penalize them later for listening to you. The way that America talked about Crimea was, you can't beat them that way, so we'll have to come back to it eventually. We'll have to come back to Crimea eventually once there's a different guy, maybe not a Putin, when Russia's liberal, when we can, offer sanctions relief for diplomatic integration. That never came. And so instead of Ukraine getting, we'll give that up for actual concessions, it's you just have to give it up. He's just treating it as if it's already done, which is terrible negotiating. If you actually needed to give up Crimea, let's say in Trump's mind, he really thought that without a legal recognition of Crimea, no matter what damage that would do to the international law or standards or what, put that all aside. If you really believed you had to do it, you sit down in negotiations and say, if you want this, if you want America to degrade itself and recognize this, to rewrite international order and laws around you're going to have to give us something pretty nice. And so far, we've got nothing. No U.S. troops in Ukraine, no NATO membership. We've excluded Ukraine from the negotiations. We're keeping them away. We've cut off aid. We've cut off intelligence support. We stopped supporting the return of kidnapped children. Now we're talking about giving up Crimea, and we haven't gotten anything. It is an approach where the carrot is solely focused on Russia and the stick is solely focused on Ukraine.
Guys, you know what Dylan's getting for that statement? He getting this.
Slava Ukrainian.
You're spot on, bro. It's like absolutely nothing. And now to take it a step further, and I can tell you guys, because I'm watching it live right now, now there are 11 aircraft in the air, Tupolovs, 2 different type of Tupolovs. The MiGs will go up, and there are 50 new Shaheeds flying over. It's going to be a very, very hot night and morning for Ukraine. I'll keep watching it as long as we're live here. So let's take it now a little step further, because then we're going to blow the whole volcano up in just a minute, Dylan. Going to blow the whole volcano up. All right. Right now, the volcano is just kind of rumbling and the lava's coming up.
Smoking a bit.
It's smoking a bit right now. Okay. So Levitt comes out this afternoon, Carolyn Levitt, Trump's spokesperson, and says, okay, Zelenskyy is going the wrong way. Okay, Zelensky's going the wrong way. Listen to this.
As President Trump rightfully pointed out in that statement, it was President Obama who gave up Crimea, who allowed Russia to take it over in 2014. And so the president is not asking Ukraine to recognize Crimea. Nobody has asked them to do that. What he is asking is for people to come to the negotiating table recognizing that this has been a brutal war for far too long. And in order to make a good deal, both sides have to walk away a little bit unhappy. And unfortunately, President Zelenskyy has been trying to litigate this peace negotiation in the press, and that's unacceptable to the president. These should be closed-door negotiations. The president's national security team, his advisors, have exuded significant time, energy, and effort to try to bring this war to an end. The American taxpayer has funded billions of dollars in this effort, and enough is enough. The president's frustrated. His patience is running very thin. He wants to do what's right for the world. He wants to see peace. He wants to see the killing stop. But you need both sides of the war willing to do that. And unfortunately, President Zelenskyy seems to be moving in the wrong direction.
Okay, so I'll pull out 3 things there. Zelenskyy moving in the wrong direction, and we're not asking Ukraine not to recognize Crimea. Nothing about that. You know, that's on Obama. Additionally, we really need both sides to be able to give up stuff. And that's what you were speaking about. Russia's giving up nothing. They're gaining everything. But this is the narrative being skewed.
They said, oh, both Ukraine's going to be happy. Russia's going to be unhappy. I read their papers. They're not unhappy.
No,
you can read. Go if you don't want to go actually like learn Russian or learn the language. Okay, I don't blame you. But if you don't want to bother, go listen to Steve Rosenberg's reports, where he goes through the headlines of the Russian state press. He works for the BBC, one of the few good reporters left in Russia. There's very few of them. And he reads the headlines.
Yes.
And if you go through them, they're talking about how do we extend Trump's term in office to make it so he can like be in power past 2028, because they're scared of losing this gift of what they have for the next 4 years. And so this is the real problem with the Trumpian philosophy of it. If you really bought into, let's say you're in the little like high castle on the hill where the real deals are made. Okay. You're at the Trumpian deep state swamp meeting. Okay. He's replaced the old swamp with a new swamp. If you're in that meeting and you're talking about, okay,
the swamp's been replaced with the cesspool.
The swamp's been replaced with a cesspool. I do like that. If you're in that meeting, you say, okay, we're going to normalize with the Russians. It's not going to work. The Russians don't trust America. They're not going to trust America, not in this century, not in this decade, not anywhere near now. And the reason why is because people like me and people like Greg and a whole other party that does not and will not and has not changed their perspective on the Russians at all since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, if anything, have been hardened because they see the Russians not only interfering in Europe's affairs, which is interfering in NATO's affair, which is interfering in America's affairs, and they see the brutality of it. And, you know, Democrats tend to be a little bit more bleeding heart. But on top of all of it, the Russians have interfered in American internal politics by trying to pump up Black Lives Matter and Blue Lives Matter protests right next to each other to start fights and friction in our country, by trying to increase partisanship, by trying to increase the amount of disinformation, and to favor the candidates that push forward their agenda. And if you're an American who cares about their country and doesn't think that the Kremlin should be deciding who the next president of the United States is, or should be, you know, putting, you know, big time American alt media commentators on their payroll, like Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, Lauren Southern, all these people, then you're going to be angry about it. You're going to be pissed off about it. And so they're always going to be uncertain about our intentions. And yeah, they've welcomed to the White House press pool.
Tim Pool.
But in 4 years, somebody like us might get elected. And they know that someone like us might get elected. And since that's the case, they're never going to fully change their position to be friendly towards the United States, to fully develop those deep ties, because they will always have that uncertainty. And if you think that they're going to stop their infiltration with intelligence, or they're going to stop their cyber operations, I think you're incredibly naive.
Listen, the other statement she made, and then we'll move on to the next one. And there's so much good chat going on. Guys, I'm trying to keep up with you. I can't now. You're going too fast. So enjoy the chat. I'm watching what I can, and we'll get to the supers and the gifts in just a minute and the comments. But this is the other thing she said. You know, this negotiating out in the open, this stuff needs to be done behind closed doors. Isn't it Donald Trump that spews nonstop every idea and thought publicly on social media? I mean, there's nothing behind closed doors. Our own national security, we just add people to message groups and we just do what we want to do. But we blame Ukraine for, hey, you need to be negotiating this stuff in private. That's the pot calling the kettle black, sir.
And anybody who's been watching this war for long enough knows that even if they did have it in private, it'd get leaked out eventually anyway, because the Trump administration's so leaky, they've put them in the bathtub, they'd sink in 3 seconds, man. It's just not gonna work. But there's a few other things in this I just wanted to point out.
Go, man.
Like when Trump talking about 3 years from now, what's going to happen in 3 years? We've saw the Wagner coup. Don't know how drone production is going to be different. We see how the Russians are burning through the Soviet era armored reserves fast. Nobody is going to get on a little scooter and jostle around the front, getting stuck in every dirt pile unless you absolutely have to, especially when you're already having to pay what type of crazy $3,000, $4,000 a month to get these 50-year-old men, which is the average age of the Russian volunteer at this point, 50-year-old men to the front line. You wouldn't be doing any of these things unless you had to. And so it's one thing to say that Ukraine's smaller than Russia. They have less manpower in their deepest of reserves than Russia. They have certain disadvantages, and we need to be aware of this if the war is going to continue, versus Russia is a mythological creature who cannot lose a war. They've crushed everything. They just gather all their forces, and the mighty power of the Ruski Mir overpowers the state. Unless you're the Chechens or the Japanese, or it's the First World War, or it's like, besides all the other instances that prove that exactly not to be the case, we treat them like almost like a mythological creature. Also, when Trump talks, he talks as if, or his press secretaries talk, they talk as if they represent Trump, not America. When they say things like, oh, that was under Obama, oh, that was under Biden, that was under so-and-so. Other countries don't trust that type of thinking, because when they make agreements with the United States, they expect when they sign a trade deal that it's going to last for a decade or 2 decades, and not that it's going to be thrown into the air between administrations, especially if the trade deals you negotiate, like the one Trump did, like NAFTA X or NAFTA Plus, NAFTA Triple X, I have no clue. But he renegotiates his trade deal, and then then he comes back in the office and blows it up, says, who negotiated this? Whoever negotiated this is a moron. You have to represent America, not yourself. And this is something Trump has never got.
It's a mythology that's been built into his character over time, over decades, and now we're even seeing it just go like into rage mode. It's the same type. So you talk about the mythology of Russia, okay, and then you use the word Ruski Mir. So for you guys that don't know Russian, Dylan said Russian world. Okay, so he loves it, man. He loves the idea that it is centric to him being Lord of all. That's why the respect there for Putin, the respect there for Xi, the respect and friendship there for Kim Jong-un. I mean, can you believe that this is the circle of friends that the President of the United States has? I mean, I can. Here's what's interesting. Let's take it to this one now. When the peace talks today just collapsed, let's call it for what it was. That was a disaster. Zelenskyy, by making the statement, and we're going to validate that statement in just a few minutes. And if you haven't seen this yet, you're going to like this. But Zelenskyy being validated, talks blow up. Rubio's not there. He's out talking. Hegseth's saying we're out of Europe. Vance is in India. Okay. You know what? Let me play Vance's 1, 2, 3. Okay, bud. This is madness.
We've issued a very explicit proposal to both the Russians and the Ukrainians, and it's time for them to either say yes or for the United States to walk away from this process. We've engaged in an extraordinary amount of diplomacy, of on-the-ground work. We've really tried to understand things from the perspective of both the Ukrainians and the Russians. What do Ukrainians care the most about? What do the Russians care the most about? And I think that we've put together a very fair proposal. We're going to see if the Europeans, the Russians, and the Ukrainians are ultimately able to get this thing over the finish line. Again, I feel pretty optimistic about it. I think everybody has been negotiating in good faith, but it's now time, I think, to take, if not the final step, one of the final steps, which is at a broad level, the parties saying, we're going to stop the killing, we're going to freeze the territorial lines at some level close to where they are today, and we're going to actually put in place the kind of long-term diplomatic settlement that hopefully will lead to long-term peace.
I know you're going to enjoy comment on this. I would just say this. First of all, you don't care about Ukraine at all, nor have you listened to them. But secondly, I really just want to punch him in the face. I mean, really, he just needs it, because I think he just likes listening to himself talk. He's completely lost. It's just my opinion. I know you were watching the video. I was watching your facial expressions back there.
Yeah, they tried nothing and they're completely out of ideas. What are we gonna do?
Exactly.
I mean, look, Trump said one thing. This is the thing, okay? Okay, I'll get a little brash here, but Trump said peace through strength. The way he pitched to his own crowd is that he's gonna go in there, he's gonna put his foot on the bench, he's gonna slap his knee, and he's gonna say, "Looky here, Moscow, Ivan.
Yeah.
We're gonna stop this here, okay? And this is what we're gonna do. You're either gonna quiet down and accept my terms, or you're gonna have to deal with a man called Colt, and we're gonna send tons of aid, and we're gonna overpower them, and we're gonna make Obama look like a pussy, and that was the idea, right? So it was able to cover two areas. It was able to cover the area of, hey, look, I'm offering peace, so he's the peacemaker, while also keeping that cowboy, six-shooter, I say what I mean, and I'm a strong man, and you're not gonna stick up to America look, right? So it meant that you would try for peace, but if peace fails, you're ready, right? Now, that position, I actually never had a problem with that position. My thought was, if you try to make a good faith deal with the Russians at this point, they're not going to accept it unless you put immense amount of pressure on them to make them have to accept it. So that actually lines up pretty well to the only pathway to peace that I think outside of prolonging the war currently exists. But what Trump has decided to do instead, and this is the way we have to describe it, he's prolonging the war.
Correct.
He's prolonging the war. If you make your options either A, accept this deal that's a non-starter for the Ukrainians, in which the Russians themselves are saying is still not enough for them, if you listen to Peskov at least, who represents the president of Russia. Even if the dude is a loon, he represents the president of Russia, just like our press secretary represents our country. So either take that, and if it fails, well then, we walk away. So if you walk away, the war continues, like Trump said, for another 3 years, 4 years. Who knows, now with Ukraine in a worse position. Or best case scenario, you're able to get something with no long-term security guarantees, which could mean the war starts again in a year from now, and then we got 3 years down the line, and there's a whole other generation of Ukrainians that are going to be fighting and dying. So it's either kick the can down the road or continue the war and prolong the war.
Well, I'll tell you this.
Without him using his original proposal and actually adding pressure, the Russians just think it's all carrot, and why are they going to leave the buffet table?
They're not. And you are making a very, very wise statement there, because that's the truth that you just said. The actions of the Trump administration in regard to this has not done anything to end the war. What it has done is extended the war, made it worse, made it more difficult to bring resolution to, and it has been, out of any option possible, to proceed forward for the Trump administration, they have made every decision wrong in dealing with Russia and Ukraine. Now, here's what's interesting. As soon as these peace talks today in London fell apart, the news came out that Witkoff is already on the way to Moscow. He's going to meet with Putin. It's already confirmed. Witkoff will be once again sitting with Vladimir Putin on Friday. It's interesting to me also earlier.
Greg, I do need to ask, the Russians had a plane crash in this war. Are we due for one? Wagner had a plane crash. I'm just saying, are we due for a plane crash?
It's possible.
When do we get to be so lucky? I'm sorry. Continue.
You put me in a corner there, man. The plane crash I want is the one with Vladimir Vladimirovich on it. That would be great. I'll tell you this, though.
So when they're on vacation together, sorry.
That's true. That'll work. Okay.
Stop myself.
But he's en route, probably already there. And you made the statement about Peskov. And the next slide up was Dmitry Peskov and Witkoff. He's heading there to meet with Vladimir Putin. What is also interesting that people need to pay attention to is when the negotiations were happening in Paris a few days ago, when Rubio came out of the meetings, the first person he called was Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, to report on the talks. So you can see Rubio was calling Lavrov. The talks failed today in London, so Witkoff is on a plane to go meet with Putin. We only care about the Russian viewpoint, and this is exactly what you were talking about. This is what Witkoff will listen to.
Despite launching drones at Ukrainian military targets when the order came, we shot down our own drones mid-flight. Since then, our forces have followed this order, yet Ukraine attacks our energy infrastructure daily. Either Ukraine won't honor the truce, or it can't. What do you mean it can't? It's known that Zelenskyy doesn't control all his divisions. Zelenskyy might not have full control over his troops. Some battalions don't listen to him. Nationalist battalions won't follow his orders. That's a major issue.
So this is what he's going to listen to. You know, it's the neo-Nazis, it's the Nazis, it's the Azov, it's Kraken. They're all just doing their own thing. Zelensky's completely out of control. And, you know, he went on to say, you know, you can leave and completely surrender, lay down your arms, leave Lugansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhzhia, and Kherson. It's over. This is what Witkoff will be listening to right there. That was today.
And the thing is, look, if this was if this was somebody else, if this was a Russia expert, if this was, say, I mean, even Keith Kellogg, and I'm not happy with Keith Kellogg as of recent, but I would feel much more comfortable with someone like Keith Kellogg being sent over there, even if he's under Donald Trump's orders, because he's going to be able to smell bullshit. He's going to be able to listen to them whispering each other and understand what they're trying to get at. He's going to be able to understand at least the historic significance of, like, hey, if we ask the Ukrainians to give up the city of Kherson, well, that means a river crossing, and a river crossing, and he's going to understand this in a way that Steve Witkoff won't. And he won't. He's not going to be able to learn. He hasn't tried to learn. He's not attempting to learn. I mean, if you're going on Tucker Carlson's show, one of the most popular alt media podcasts in the country, and at that point, when you're already chosen to be negotiator here, you can't name the territory that's being fought over, that's being negotiated. You have to retract your statements after, because you call the Russian referendums legitimate, and then you have to have other people clean up your mess. And this is the main point, man, we've decided to choose for this.
Sir.
This is the folly of prioritizing loyalty over actual knowledge and expertise. If you make the experts your enemy, well, then you won't have any when you need an ally.
Sir, this is the responsibility of the Secretary of State of the United States, and he's been basically taken off the table. And you not only have Witkoff, a golfing buddy, 30-year close friend and confidant, mega donor, just a businessman with zero diplomatic experience, zero international knowledge, not only negotiating and sitting in the presence of the most evil man on the planet, Vladimir Putin, on Friday and multiple times. Additionally, he is also the envoy for the Iranian situation, the Israeli situation, the Syrian situation. Witkoff is everywhere. We have basically put out the most unqualified person to speak on behalf of American or international interests that is absolutely possible. And there's only one reason that I can find, and that is Donald Trump. Trust Witkoff. That's the only thing I can find. That's it.
The sentence, our Middle East envoy is en route to Moscow, should not be a sentence. That doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense. That's the region he was thrown at to learn. He doesn't know the Middle East, but he was thrown at the Middle East to learn the Middle East. He's thrown at these regions, but he's thrown at every region at the same time at once. He's supposed to learn everything. And of course he's not learning. And that means for the people who do know stuff, say KGB agents who could eat you for breakfast, yeah, they're going to take advantage of you. And by the way, like when you talk about like Zelenskyy, I just want to go back there and comment briefly on what Peskov said about, Zelenskyy not controlling his own army.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right sector is not a gigantic, powerful behemoth. I've interviewed right sector fighters. I've talked to them about all sorts of stuff, including the taboo and the not taboo. And, some of those guys are intimidating. Some of those dudes are the type of like street toughs that I probably would not want to see outside a gay film event. If you want to see at the recent Sunny Film Festival stuff that happened, they invite, those are good people, by the way, support those guys. But, when they had the scandal over the pixels, I don't know if you heard about this scandal, but basically old right sector, old boys, good old boys, started bringing in new recruits who were coming in for the regular armed forces into the 67th, and they would refer to those guys as pixels, and they put them in the unenvious position of going on some of the most dangerous missions, going on some of the most, that was the accusation that eventually led to the 67th being chopped up by the general command. So those people that he says that Zelenskyy has no control over, they have one like high profile scandal this war, chop, 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 chop.
And they solved it.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that's not the narrative. That's not the narrative. And unfortunately, Trump, Witkoff, and the rest of them, it's already done, man. They've chosen their side. They've chosen what they will believe in and how they will move forward. And I'm telling you, what I'm getting ready to show you is going to enrage Donald Trump. It's already happened because I know he already knows it. He's been played like it's a masterpiece, and you're going to show it to you. And we're going to go very sideways. I hate to make predictions. Ukraine's going to keep fighting, and I'm hoping Europe's going to stand up. But as far as the American perspective, I think it's going to go extremely sideways over the next week or so. It's just my prediction. Could be wrong. Hope it's wrong. But Polish Foreign Minister Sikorski, I don't know if you saw this. Listen to this. This is today. Sikorski speaking in the parliament, lower house parliament there in Warsaw. This is the foreign minister. Listen to what he says.
Się zmieniły. Dla mocodawców pana
I didn't get
Dugina
the
mam
translator one.
wiadomość.
Sorry.
Nigdy więcej.
That's all right. I'll voice it over. I had it voiced over. He's speaking in Polish. Let's go. Here we go.
Się zmieniły.
The times have
Dla
changed.
mocodawców pana
I
Dugina
have a
mam
message
wiadomość.
for Mr. Dugan's patrons.
Nigdy
You will
więcej
never
nie będziecie
rule
tu
here
rządzić.
again.
Ani w Kijowie, ani
You're
w
not going to rule in Kyiv
ani
or
w Rydze,
Vilnius
ani
or
w
Riga
Tallinie,
or Tallinn
ani w
or in
Kiszyniewie.
Kishinev.
Mało macie ziemi?
Don't you have enough
11
land?
stref czasowych. I
11
wciąż
time
wam mało?
zones still not enough for you?
Zajmijcie się
No, you'd
lepszym
rather focus.
rządzeniem tym,
You need to
co
focus on better
zgodnie z prawem
governments of what
międzynarodowym
is within your
leży w
borders,
obrębie waszych granic.
recognized by international
Zamiast
law.
fantazjować o
Instead
ponownym
of
podbiciu
fantasizing
Warszawy,
about conquering Warsaw again,
martwcie się o to,
worry about whether you can hold
utrzymacie
Haishinwe, which is Volgograd. So this is today, Dylan. That's the
Well, he
Polish.
said that the Chinese way for a purpose. I do want to point that out. He said it the Chinese way because it didn't always used to be controlled by the Russians. And there are some who talk about Chinese claims in the region. I think most of it's fear mongering, but it is something that scares the Russians immensely.